So this week I have been, and for the last 2 weeks, I have been struggling with a heat problem. Our boiler is basically bust in our apartment. So we've been trying to get that fixed, but our landlord eventually dropped over some heaters, some oil heaters. And I have to say, lads, yesterday was like the first day of Christmas for me, or the first day of the holiday period, if you don't celebrate. But it was amazing. I had the little heater on in the sitting room, had it timed, let it kind of preheated the oven, preheated the old living room for a little bit. And then I came in, popped on Frasier, which is the greatest show that's ever been written and ever on television. Went in, lovely and toasty, and I was just like, brilliant, I'm fixed. So, feeling pretty good today. We've got Friday as well. I'm going to go for a couple of pints, I think, tomorrow. I am wondering about the mental cost of the pints, though. I think tomorrow we're starting late, so we're starting at 8, which is always great, right? And my hangovers now, because, I'm pushing on. I'm an old fogey, so my hangovers are probably lasting upwards of 60 plus days at this stage. It seems it takes me so long to come around after it. So this is the plan, right? And I'll update you next week, but this is the plan. We're going to start at 8 o'clock, right? Which it could even be after 8 o'clock, depending on the commitments of some people I'm meeting up with. They might show up a little bit late, so we could be pushing to maybe 7:30 or 8:30 for you transatlantic people. But what I'm going to aim for, I'm just going to have some pints, right? Just have a couple of pints, not move on to any shots. And one thing I'm going to avoid, which you should all avoid because it's a terrible, terrible habit, is smoking. I'm going to avoid smoking. I don't smoke normally, but I do partake in a little social cigarette when I'm out having a couple of pints. And to be honest, right, I'm not promoting this, okay? So don't do it. It's a terrible habit. But my God, that first drag when you're having a cup after a couple of pints and you have a drag of that cigarette, oof, my God. You know what? You can see why people get addicted to it. I also have a fairly addictive personality, so those kind of things are not the best for me. But so that's the plan, right? Just clean pints, just pint to pint across the evening. Try and get home for a reasonable hour. I'm not going to fool myself and say I'm going to be home at midnight, but like if I got home for 2 o'clock and I was just after drinking pints, perfect. The last 2 times I've gone out, maybe less so the last time, but the time before that, like I woke up and I don't know how I stopped myself from crying when I woke up in the morning. I woke up at actually 1 o'clock. So I had the whole day's wasted guilt, and I also felt like, well, I was still probably pissed, to be honest, but I couldn't function. So I don't want that to happen again. So that's the plan. Just a couple of pints, no shots, no cigarettes, and if I say it now, hopefully I'll stick to it. And also I can't do it either because I need to keep my AoE training up. My Age of Empires training is going quite well at the moment. Actually, I'm quite happy with it. What I'm concentrating on the moment, to kind of rewind a little bit. So what's happening is that I do have a choice here to just maybe pick one civ, pick one strat, even 2 strats, and just go forward with that and maybe climb up elo. I do believe that I could climb up a good little bit of elo if I was grinding away and just using a couple of strats and just sticking to what I know now and not learning anything else. But what's basically been happening in the last couple of months, one is I can't dedicate that much time to 1v1s with, full-time job and streaming and comedy and writing and a whole bunch of other stuff. And I'll obviously trying to have a life then as well, 10 minutes a week. But so what I've been doing then to add to that is I have kind of, let's say, make a couple of improvements, and then my secret coach will say, okay, you've improved in this, but now you need to add this in. Now you need to add this in. So I've been adding things in all along, and every time I add something in, it's kind of like I wouldn't say I'm taking a step back, but I'm taking a momentarily stepping back. And then I can start to go forward again. But then when I get a little bit forward, there's more things added in. But it has improved my game and my enjoyment of it massively. So I actually quite like this method of trying to learn the best way to play the game, even at a lower elo, because I'm currently about 1150 elo or somewhere around there. Still haven't broke the 1200 elo mark. That's basically been my goal. I kind of said that at the start because I don't want to lose sight of those things either, because that's the way it goes, isn't it? You keep on pushing up a level, even with money, with, I don't know, I can't think of anything else. Money is basically the only thing I can think of at the moment. But you know, you're like, oh, I'll be okay when I have this, and then you get that, and you're like, I'll be okay when I have this, and you keep on pushing up and pushing up and pushing up. But I said at the start when I started playing AoE, back like when I really started playing it back in January, I kind of said to myself, all right, okay, if I'm 1200, that's an elo that, and I want to be careful with this word, but I'm like, that's an elo that I can respect. You know, like, and not that I don't respect lower elos or anything like that, but just a personal kind of goal. I was like, I would say that if I was 1200 elo, I think that's a good mark of where I want to be and where I could be. So that's kind of always been the goal. Doesn't matter what your goal is. As your goal can be 700 elo, your goal can be just playing AI, your goal can be just enjoying the game. Doesn't matter at all. Elo is not that important. But for me, that's just been a marker. But the bigger marker, well, to be honest, right? I can say that, right? But I do think that the AoE community in itself is very, very based on elo, no matter what they say, right? And to be honest, they do actually say that. But it is very, very like, you know, beat you with a stick if you're not 1200, if you're not 1300, 1400, 1500, up and up and up and up and up. So I do think that it is quite elo based. To be honest, I would like to get up a couple of hundred more elo, which I think I'm capable of doing, just so maybe people will just kind of be like, oh yeah, he can play the game. You know, that would just, I think that would take the edge off for me. I'd be dishonest if I wasn't saying that. But again, elo doesn't matter, and that's something I've always kind of proclaimed since I started playing. So it doesn't matter what elo you are, but at the same time, I think it would be easier if I was a couple of hundred elo higher to say things like that. Because right now, because I'm like 1150 and a lot of people are like, well, that's no elo. Right now, I'm not at that point where I can probably defend that position. But I think if I'm a couple of hundred elo higher, then I can defend that position a little bit easier. Kind of have to be, I suppose, you kind of have, you know, if you went to war, then you can say how bad war is. So that's another kind of reason to get up there. But that's only like 5%. The 95% is that I really, really want. Well, it's the journey, isn't it? Like, it's the journey of playing the game. That's what the most fun part is. Like, when you get to 1200 elo, it doesn't really matter. Or when you get to 1300 elo, it's kind of learning the stuff along the way that's been great. So I have been having a lot of fun. One of the things that I have been doing at the moment, which I think it's important to go back when you're playing the game to do this, and there is a kind of a stink with AI. I think a lot of people don't really like AI. They don't rate it as playing against it and stuff. Now, this is the typical thing in AoE. When I say this, people will say, no, we always loved AI, right? But you didn't, right? You didn't. There's been a load of people who've said that playing against AI is useless, and it's definitely not. And I think even, I can only speak for the level I'm at the moment, but it definitely has its benefits. So I can say categorically up to about 1150, touching 1200, that it's still useful. And what I'm using it for at the moment is I will go and play some 1v1s online or play against people who are a higher elo than me. And then I will go and play against AI and try and improve on the things that I was lacking in those games. Usually focusing on, let's say, control groups or just kind of controlling my army. So like at the moment I can kind of make the decisions, but I can't carry them off very well. I can't execute them very well, or I'm a little bit behind what my brain is thinking. So playing against extreme AI and having a couple of goals, that's the most important thing. I think that's where probably the difference comes between a waste of time playing against AI. And again, I'm talking about my level, but if you have a couple of goals in mind. So at the moment, one of the goals I have in mind is playing as a cab civ and trying to attack the base in different places with knights in Castle Age and onwards, but trying to, like, basically just a low bar of like, okay, I want half my knights to survive. That's all I'm trying to do. Just split them up into different control groups, use the control groups, and have half of my knights survive. Currently, to be quite honest about it, when I've been playing the last 2 days, all of my knights have died. So I'm struggling to keep my units alive. And this is where extreme AI really, really helps, because they're just going to spam you with units. They're going to attack you different places. Obviously, they're not going to make as good a decisions as humans will make, probably, but you're not looking for it from playing AI. That's not what you're looking for. You're looking for your overall control of the game and your like execution hotkeys and your execution of control of your army, of your control groups themselves. So that's been really, really useful. And I think anyone who's coming up along the game, if you just grind 1v1s constantly, I think that you'll struggle to improve on different parts of the game. Like some people will just play 1v1s and they'll be brilliant at the game and they'll excel, and good for them, right? I'm not that person, and I think a lot of people aren't that person. But when you're coming up and you're like 900 elo and you want to improve at the game, like just focus on one aspect of the game. So just focus on feudal age and then just forget about it. Just don't even worry what happens after that, or focus on dark age. Don't even worry what happens in feudal age until you get it down. And then, I see the problem when you're playing 1v1s is that you're in Dark Age, and then Dark Age is gone, and you've barely concentrated on it, and then you're in Feudal Age, and if you're lower elo as well, like, it'll probably go to Castle Age, and then before you know it, you're in this just slobber knocker of Post-Imperial Age. And at that point, what are you really learning? That, like, or would it be more beneficial to kind of, maybe play against AI and play Dark Age to death and get that down really, really well, and then learn different aspects of the game? So that's where I think the AI just comes in really, really helpful. But that's what I'm concentrating on at the moment. So I've actually just I'm not even playing many 1v1s. Just the last couple of days, I played a few of them against people and online before that. But for now, up until probably maybe it's going to take me another couple of days, I'm just focusing on getting my control of my units together. So just so I can kind of flick between the control groups, keep my units alive, and like make my attacks way, way, way more worth it, and also try and get my hands to catch up with what my brain is thinking. And that's kind of the aim at the moment. The other thing that I am struggling with, though, and I don't know how people do this, I have a theory as well that I want to put out there to people. I think it's a common enough theory. I think it is. I think I've kind of said this to people before and they've kind of agreed with it, I think, but who knows. One is time, right? And it's related to time. One, I don't understand how some people have so much time to put into it. And it's not like one or two people. It's like, it's a lot of people have so much time to put into the game, right? And I struggle to find that time to put into the game. I'm telling you, lads, I would be an animal if I could play this game all day, every day. I can't, obviously. But AoE is such like, if you talk about 1v1s, I mean, you're locking yourself in for about 20 minutes, like, regardless. And the majority of them, I think, are going, unless you get up to even like 1500 elo or something, there's a good chance you're going to end up in Castle Age. There's a good chance you might even end up in Imperial Age. So they can go on for a long, long time. So obviously, you sit down, you say, I'll play a bit of AoE, and then it's tomorrow, before you know it. So it's a very hard game to kind of plan around, to just even play it, just to play it lightly, like just to say, I'll have a go, like no training regime involved, just say, I'll have a go, and it's like 2 hours gone and you've played one game. So it's a very, very time consuming game. But I would love to know what people's like kind of, and it's not in a judgmental way, it's totally out of interest. I'd love to know what people's like backgrounds are, or what their situations are that they can devote so much time to the game. Are they just let's say, I'm sure some people, it might be like their go-to thing in their life. It's what they love doing. Are there people who have full-time jobs and then just dedicate the evening to it? Are there people who don't have jobs and this is their kind of structure of the day to grind away on AoE too? But I really would love to know what people's backgrounds are in how they play the game and where they get the time to play it and stuff. Probably sounds a little bit naive to say that, but I think it's an interesting question, just because you see the usernames pop up obviously in the stream and whatever, and someone will say, playing these guys today, or playing those guys today, or whatever, and they might have a couple of games under their belt per day, and it's just be interesting to see how they fit it in, because I know there's guys that I know that like have jobs and still play a lot of games, so it's just I wonder how they do it for themselves. But all of that is connected to my next theory, right? So this is the big theory for the podcast today. So I usually play my 1v1s probably around, might be like 10 a.m., 11 a.m. maybe, every weekday. So that's like GMT time, right? So I usually play it around then. I have played games in the evening and at the weekend, and they've definitely been easier. Even though, obviously, there's this ELO problem with this theory that the ELO is, you're going to be lined up against people of your own ELO. But I definitely think that there's a different sort of player earlier in the week at my time zone anyway, at that time. Like, there seems to be guys and girls out there that are like relentless grinders. I wish I had a different word for this, but just like try hard has negative connotations, but I'll say completely dedicated to winning, like completely and utterly dedicated to winning. And I think the opponents during that time they're harder to play. I think they don't give up. I think they grind it out. And for a lot of people that I play, even when I'm playing them, sometimes I'm like, this can't be 1150. Like, it just can't. There's no way this can be 1150, because if this is 1150 and I'm putting this much time into it and stuff, I'm like, I'm toast. Like, I'm completely toast. But I have seen other people play around the same level, and I played myself, at the weekend and stuff, and it seems to be, I think it's different. I think the timings make a big difference, even though, again, we have this ELO problem of why would it matter if the ELO is the same. But I have my sneaking suspicions. Like, I've come up against a lot of people that would, during that time, have like 2,000 games under their belt. So they know how to play the game. Sorry, just taking a lovely sip of my coffee. They know how to play the game, and they're going to know a lot of things to beat you with that higher level things. They might not be executing everything, at a higher level, but they're going to have things that are constantly going to trip you up. So I don't know, maybe it's a good thing to play against these people during the week, but I don't know. Is that something that people have noticed? Is that something that people have discussed before? Because it's definitely something that I seem to have picked up on. And I'm checking, profiles and stuff afterwards. And it's not as if I'm losing these games, and being like, oh, what's going on here or whatever. But, I'll win a couple of games. I'll lose a couple of games, same as anyone else. But I'll still feel like, God, that person really made me win that game. Now I'll look back and I'll see the mistakes I made, and I'll acknowledge that, like, even if I win, like, oh, I should have won it at this point. I got all my scouts killed. I shouldn't have fought his militia. I should have just counterattacked, etc., etc. But I still feel that I'm like, these players are different. They're like a different breed during the week, or on the weekdays that I'm playing anyway. They definitely seem to be. I just want to say as well that now that it's all over, the All-Stars, the City All-Stars Streamer Cup, the 1v1, we held it over November, and we got over 32 streamers involved in it. And I have to say, it was absolutely brilliant. I really, really enjoyed it. I thought it had a good feel to it, and it just had, I suppose, a wholesome feel to it. Threaded through it, and it was just really, really nice. We've held the Blender Cup, which was the first one we held, which was such a good laugh, and we held the Toaster Cup, and now we've also, after getting through the All-Stars Cup. But I think it was really, really enjoyable to get all the streamers involved, because I kind of noticed, to a certain extent, especially if you're a smaller streamer, and I mean really small, like a new streamer, it's quite hard to connect with people. How do you do it? Like, how do you not come, like, the only way you can connect with people sometimes is like by going into chat and saying hello, and they're like, who the hell is this person? Like, and it's very hard to get a gauge on someone. And I've personally experienced that as well. Like, I still experience that. Like, I hop into a chat and say hello, and they're like, who is this dude? So I wanted to kind of connect up the streamers a little bit more, and just kind of, maybe even, like, I suppose part of it was just to meet new people as well, just like, oh, let's say, I don't know, like Sean and AoE, maybe I didn't have much contact with him, we might pop into each other's chats and stuff, but not too much contact. People like Maggie, Mango Mel, Grathrang, just all these people that I wouldn't really have too much contact with, but wanted to kind of get everyone involved playing against everyone else, and just kind of, because there's a real strong backbone of streamers that are probably, let's say on the viewership of anywhere between like 20 to 100, and I think that they're like a huge backbone of the community, So it was really nice to kind of get a cup to kind of, I guess, kind of celebrate that. Now I know this sounds very like on the nose and maybe a little bit cheesy, but to be honest, you have to be cheesy sometimes. I mean, all we're doing on this game, sometimes it just seems like we're just grinding and trying to be edgy and, you know, just memes and whatever. So it is nice to just kind of bring it back and have a good time. And I think the players really enjoyed themselves. Hippo Run won the whole thing out. Trooper came second, and we had Sean and AoE and Daly play in their third place playoff last night, and Sean won that and Daly came fourth. But it was so nice to have all these different stories running throughout the tournament, like Daly going on to first of all kill his mills because he hates mills, but second of all to, you know, come out of a really hard run where, you know, most people probably would have written him off in the early stages. He makes it into the semi-finals. Then you had, like I was saying, you know, Trooper and Hippo Run, two people that I wouldn't have had contact with before this. They're just making a run through the tournament on either side. Ends up with a friends final then, because I know they play team games and stuff together, which was really nice. And then we have Sean and AoE going through on the other side as well. So yeah, it was really nice. It was nice to see people and just get together and play against streamers and see them chatting and saying, oh yeah, game is on this week, and, you know, I had a lovely time playing and stuff. So I think it's been a huge success. I think it's been a massive success. Now, in terms of the next tournament, so what I want to do in the new year is kind of use the good feelings from that and the streamers that we got involved, and maybe even turn their roles into, you know, if they can't enter into this one because it's going to be a higher elo tournament, you know, it's probably going to be open for maybe 1400 to 1800. We already discussed this, but the 1400 to 1800 is kind of a little bit of a fake. It would probably really mean it's a tournament of 1600 to 1800, because the 1400s, you know, up towards the, you know, maybe 1550s are going to have a hard time going up against those kind of elo differences. But I still kind of want to get people who are above 1400 involved. So even if they get, you know, knocked out in the first round or whatever, you can still go up and play against some cool streamers, some people you might not have met. Just enjoy a game playing them. You know, it's, as I've said every single time, like, if there's 32 people in the cup, 31 people have to lose. Like, that's just the way it is. But it's not really meant to be about the winner. You know, like whenever I come to the semi-finals and finals in a tournament, and it has been the case all the way along, thankfully, I'm always like, oh yeah, the pressure's off now. Like, the tournament has been a success up to this. Like, people have enjoyed themselves, people have had fun, we've had some really good competitive games, people have played their hearts out. So now, like, the semis and the final, that's just a bonus. Like, that's just, you know, where we can relax and watch these really good players play it out, give us some great games. But basically, whatever happens after the quarterfinals, you're just like, yeah, this is brilliant. So especially in this tournament, that was completely sealed in. But what we want to do with the higher elo is, like I said, probably about 1600 to 1800 with the door open for 1400s plus. And yeah, just get all the higher elo streamers involved, which I definitely have less contact with, I think, than I do with maybe the streamers around my own level. So it's going to be really, really good to get those guys involved, guys and girls involved. Yeah, we're going to push on, probably try and time it. It's kind of difficult in AoE at the moment to time it for a time where there's not going to be, you know, maybe a big cup on. But again, it's very hard to see. I kind of, like, honestly, I do wish that there was more kind of visibility on when these cups are going to happen so we could plan around it. So, you know, it's obviously, like, that's just an admin thing. You know, it's not saying, like, these cups are fantastic. They keep AoE on the map, like, you know, like full 100% support behind them. But it would just be nice if we could just kind of see when the cups are going to be on, when the big cups might land, and just give us a little bit of run-up time. When even, like, kind of just the general month of when they might be happening in the next 6 months to a year. And then we can kind of plan around it and just help out the smaller streamers then, or maybe even get involved with promoting those bigger streams or bigger tournaments as well, which would be nice. So yeah, we'll probably try and aim for maybe February for the high elo edition. Someone mentioned last night that we do a top 100 edition, which I think would be really cool. But again, the focus is going to be on streamers and bringing kind of viewers over to different streamers and getting other people involved. And then maybe from the mid elo edition, we can get people who are involved in that And I mean, it's open across the board, but it would be nice to see maybe some of the people stream some of that then as well, because it's going to be open casting again up to semis and finals. And yeah, I really enjoyed actually hopping into other people's streams and just seeing them stream it as well. It was fun. It was really, really fun. I've only been at this, you know, like the AoE side of it since January, pretty much. We played some AoE, you know, maybe like once a week or once every other week since probably the October before that. But it's been really fun. It's been really fun. I think it's a really, really cool community. And people are, for the most part, welcoming. You know, for the most part, welcoming. If you also tell them I'm not going to take any crap from you, then they're really welcoming. But no, it's been really, really fun. I really, really enjoyed it, and it was honestly a privilege to see, like, and I know they're strong words, right? And I know some people are going to roll their eyes at it, but it is like it's a privilege to see players take part in a tournament, give up their time, and then see streamers, you know, push this tournament so big, you know. And I obviously, right, I mean, it goes without saying, right, this, you know, this is obviously has City on it, right? So it's City All-Stars, but I don't think that, you know, I hope that, not hope that, that's the wrong phrase. Like, my main aim of this was not just a big promotion for myself. This was to, honest to God, it was to try and see if we could get all the community involved. And it did feel like a bit of a party, to be honest. And I really, really enjoyed the feeling that we got from it and just the buzz that it created and stuff. So I think it's been a huge success, and I hope we can do it again in February with the same kind of aims, just connecting people, feeling like there's something on that's for us, and just, you know, drive forward with it and see if we can become big, massive celebrities. That is the goal, all right? Big, massive, rich celebrities, and by God, I'm going to try and do it. All right, I'm going to finish my coffee, lads, and I will chat to you soon.